Gamecock Nation, you are live and tuned in to South Carolina Live here on the Voice of College Football. I'm your host today, Lucas Hill. Make sure you do us a favor. Follow me on X at Lucas_Hill23. Make sure you follow the Voice of College Football at the THEVOCFE. Guys, thank you for joining us for what should be a very fun hour. A little bit about me. I know some of you are very new to this one. I was formerly of SEC Unfiltered, made the transition. I do my own live show. It's called Inside the Huddle. It's featured on X, on YouTube, on Instagram Live. So we appreciate all of you for tuning in. Appreciate Mark. Appreciate all of what the Voice of College Football has done and give me an opportunity to talk about nothing but Gamecock football. Everybody do us a favor before we go any further. Make sure you hit the like and share. Make sure you share to all those friend groups. Make sure that you like, you retweet. If you're on Instagram, leave a comment, share it to all your friends. Leave your super chats. Please, please, please. We greatly appreciate you guys' support to bring you the best content available here as we talk a lot around South Carolina football in our inaugural live show, because we got a lot cooking up here at South Carolina Live at the Voice of College Football, and we are excited to bring you that. Let's go ahead and let's talk about what could be, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important things that I don't think people are talking about enough when it comes to South Carolina football. And that is the Rasul Faison situation. Number one, and that's going to be one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about today. Is Rasul Faison going to get that NCAA waiver that will make him eligible going into 2025? So a little bit about this situation and what's going on around Columbia that is just causing so much controversy and causing so much headache in this coaching staff, and just going off of what is all going on, especially now that you're in the summer season, you're in off-season training, you're going through conditioning days, you're working out, you're supposed to be with the team. Well, Rasul Faison still hasn't gotten that waiver. He participated in spring practice, did all the spring drills, but yet he hasn't been cleared by the NCAA, which I think is a disgrace. And I think it's just ridiculous that we have to deal with this ordeal. So earlier this week, Shane Beamer talked with the media on 107.5, The Game, with our good friends Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell. He said that they still haven't received a word on the waiver that would be needed for him to just be able to play in 2025. And this is what he said. It's unfortunate. Every time I hear through the grapevine that we should know something in the next day or two, it never happens. And what's today? Friday? I think Tuesday we heard we should know something in the next couple of days. And here we are Friday. We've heard nothing. So nothing right now. Here's why this is such a big deal. And this is why I think there's a lot of frustration around Columbia, South Carolina about all this. Last year, you had the Cam McCormick situation where you get a 9th year of eligibility after McCormick started off in college football in either 16 or 17, had 2 medical waivers that got him eligible, then had COVID, then had the waiver that he sent out to the NCAA that got him eligible. Now, somebody please explain to me how that makes sense. How does it make sense that he's going to get an extra year of eligibility? What about your teammate, Oscar Attaway? He's been in college football the same time as Rasul Faison. The only difference is Rasul Faison didn't play the first 3 years of his collegiate career. Didn't play in 2019. Didn't play in 2019. Didn't play in 2020. Didn't play in 2021. Started playing college football in 2022. And we'll get into his timeline of where he's been later on in the show. And because I think it's very important that we discuss that. But this is the inconsistency that college football has shown throughout their time as being the great organization that they always have been. And we love the NCAA. It's so funny because on my live show that I do on the weekdays on my X, I talked with a guy named Jake Crane of Crane & Company, and we talked about, and I told him, I think the NCAA is going to be gone by the 2030s, maybe even sooner. And he completely agreed with me. So I think it's so funny seeing the different blows that the NCAA has taken, but yet you see how inconsistent they have been with how bad this situation is for South Carolina. Now, I understand they have a lot on their plate right now. You have the House settlement that they've taken a beating of because of. You've had many other things that has affected you at the end of the day that has prevented you from going further and worrying about individual schools and these individual eligibility requirements. Well, what about the Pavia situation? How does that make sense? He's back because he's going to get another bag from the NCAA. Nobody wants to admit it, but guys, nowadays with this House settlement and with NIL and the portal, the reason why many of these cats are going to stay in college football for a while, especially those that are 23, 24, 25 years old and staying in college football, is to get money. It is a pay for play. It is no longer about, I'm sure they love the game of football, but they know there's added incentive at the end of the day. And so schools are doing this now. You're paying guys to come on your roster. That's what you do instead of the walk-on opportunities that you give out. That's another option that you give. And I think it's so incredible that we allow for this to happen. We accept that this is a thing that is eventually not going to turn out well at the end of the day for you. That has become a disaster. That has become so inconsistent. That has just caused so much frustration, not just internally in these football programs, but also outside, from the fans' perspective, from the media's perspective. I see it, and it's ridiculous that we have to deal with this. So let's go ahead and let's get into Faison's timeline of where he's been over the last couple of years in college football. And I think this is very, very, very needed that we talk about this. So, class of 2019 initially did commit to Lackawanna, and initially committed to Marshall, sat out of 2019, didn't do anything, enrolls at Lackawanna College, which is a JUCO, doesn't play there, enrolls at Marshall in 2021, doesn't play there. My question is, did he take a red shirt during that year? Because if he did, that would make more sense. If he didn't, that's where the problem lies. And I think it's so unfortunate that we don't have that information because realistically, I don't even think he could have needed a waiver to get in. I think they would have granted him extra eligibility because his NCAA clock didn't start till 2020. So he would have gotten a red shirt. 2021, it would have been a double red shirt. And so 2022 would have been the start of his red shirt sophomore year. 23 would have been his red shirt junior, 24 red shirt senior, and he should have gotten that extra year of eligibility, pretty much like what Oscar Attaway had. This is what the NCAA has done year in and year out. You can't make consistent decisions. That's why you are a joke of a conference. That's why you're going to get dissolved by the time we get to the end of the decade. This House settlement is just more fuel that's added to the fire of the NCAA's grave that is currently being dug right now. Whether we like it or not, that's the truth. So things need to change. You got to get consistent, NCAA. Russell Faison should be eligible. Whether we like it or not, that is the absolute truth. Now, continuing on. Plays at Snow College in 2022. Enrolls at Utah State from 23 to 24. Then gets the opportunity to transfer. Enrolls at South Carolina in the spring of 25. But yeah, he still doesn't have the waiver. Well, if he didn't have the waiver, then why? Then if he was still applying for a waiver, why was he allowed to enter the portal? Why was he allowed to not go through the draft process? Because, guys, we are past the draft. We're past the portal, the spring portal, I should say. And there's really nothing new that has come out of this. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating on my part that I have to see a kid like this have to experience this and not be eligible, because I don't think that's fair. So I don't know what all is going to happen at the end of the day for Russell Faison. I really hope this kid gets the eligibility waiver signed and basically a done deal for him so that he doesn't have to worry about that when we go into the season. But my gosh, guys, this is ridiculous that we've had to deal with this. Absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. And it makes no sense that somebody like Russell Faison, who has done nothing wrong, done everything right, has to deal with that garbage. Does it make sense? Absolutely not. Will it make sense? No. But again, guys, this is the reality of what you have when you have basically guys in the NCAA that are almost congressmen at this point running collegiate athletics. You get inconsistency and you get frustration internally. That's the bottom line, guys. All right. So that's enough of that. But what is your running back room going to look like in 2025? Well, I do have a lot of confidence. First of all, I've already mentioned Oscar Attaway from North Texas, who spent time last year as the backup for Rocket Sanders. I think is a very smart and experienced running back. I think he has a lot of upside to him. He got the extra waiver this past year for him to play college football. How does that make any sense? It doesn't. That's the bottom line. But anyways, he'll be back for his 7th year, which if I keep on, I'm just going to get more and more frustrated. But played at North Texas for a couple years. Best year came in 2023. 123 carries, 738, and 6 scores for North Texas. He has the capability to break off a big run. I think he is a very powerful back. I think he's shifty in the open space, and I think he can punish any defender that gets in his way. I think he has a lot of upside for what his game brings. I think he's a guy that you can get out the backfield and you can throw and Sellers can execute well with him in the option game. Now, you would like Faison in the backfield, who would be a more reliable source of the option, but I'm sure you would like Attaway as your second option, which you've done so last year. You've got a little bit of experience with that. So I am fine with having without having Faison in the backfield for this option game, because I think Attaway is the more shifty back and the faster back out of the two. Not to mention that you also bring in Jawarn Howell, who last year made the honor roll, didn't really play a whole lot, but while he was at South Carolina State, freshman All-American, MEAC Rookie of the Year, HBCU honorable mention All-American, played and started in 9 games at South Carolina State, 102 carries for 809 yards and 7 touchdowns, 8 yards a carry. So if you want a speed back, that's your guy. Again, this is another guy that I think can break out. Another guy that I think can do damage in the run game. And he's a guy I really, really like being able to break off a big run. And I think he can do just that. I really, really, really like what he is going to do at the end of the day. I think he can be a reliable number 2. I think he might end up what Texas did with their running back room and be a heavy, heavy rotational guy at the end of the day. He may end up like Trey Wisner, who came out of the backfield, who came out as the third team back in the fall camp. Then you lose one of your star backs. Jaden Blue ends up becoming the main guy. And then you have Trey Wisner, who comes in and does damage on the ground. I think he led the team in rushing too, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, I do still appreciate what South Carolina is going to bring with this running back room at the end of the day. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsors over at Amazon. Guys, make sure you do us a favor. Shop in the Amazon link using this link. If you got to pause the video and copy and paste it into your search browser, do that. Guys, thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode of South Carolina Live at the Voice of College Football.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
Use the link. Support the Voice of College Football. Help us out. Thank you for your support. The nation's number 1 prospect in the class of 2026 is headed out to Columbia this weekend. And I think this is a very, very big deal. So Zion Eli, I guess. I don't remember how do you say his name. 6'3", 220 pounds. One of the best edge rushers from St. Francis Academy. I think if you don't know what the St. Francis Academy is in Maryland, that is a breeding ground for high-profile talent. So he is headed to South Carolina. So initially, he set 6 official visits for this spring, but decided to change it up a bit and cancel most of those trips. So he was supposed to head to Columbia, was going to go to the Plains and go to Auburn, go to Ohio State, Penn State, Texas A&M, and obviously Maryland. He's still committed to Maryland. He ended up canceling majority of his visits. He was at Auburn this past weekend, which, by the way, last week was the first official week of official visits. So on Tuesday, he's going to make one final trip to Columbia. He will be there this Saturday, and he'll be in town for a camp, and he'll have an opportunity to spend some time with some of the coaching staff. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Gamecock fan, if you are watching this, you are very excited that Zion and Ali is going to Columbia. I understand that he's still committed to Maryland, and he could stay committed. Guys, in this age of college football, there's going to be flips every single day. And we'll get into that when we go around the SEC in about 15, 20 minutes. But I want to touch on this, because the amount of flips that you see from commits has greatly increased over the last 5 years, ever since the rise of social media. Guys, Hayes Fawcett is making many, many, many different graphics. He's probably got to make graphics for all 100-plus teams in college football, because you never know if a kid is going to flip or not. But I think if you're South Carolina, this is huge. He could very well decommit by the time we get into the month of September and August, or September and October. And I would be very, very pleased if that is the case. But I also wouldn't be surprised, because money talks. How's your NIL budget? We talked about the future of the House versus NCAA settlement, which we'll get into a little bit later on in the show. So he'll be in the Midlands as part of the Fast Track Recruits annual bus tour. So they'll be in Virginia stops at Old Dominion and Norfolk State. I don't know why they're heading there, but regardless. The only other stop on the bus tour that's going to be relevant to his recruitment is the last one that concludes with a camp visit to Maryland, not this Friday, but next Friday, which I think is really, really impressive. Guys, this dude is a freak off the edge. He's running a 4.3 40, which part of me doesn't believe as a defensive end. But I do think realistically, when you get him NFL draft-wise timed, he could very well run 4.5, 4.6 40. I think he and Dylan Stewart coming off the edge in 2026 will be very, very intriguing. I think both of these guys, if Ali is going to be a Gamecock, like we mentioned, nothing is confirmed. But I think if he is to flip and go to South Carolina, which it's not really likely, because according to 247, he's expected to stay committed to Maryland. He's also very interested in Auburn as well. He and DJ Durkin have talked a lot. Has elite length. And I think that he was unblockable during the Under Armour All-American game, as well as the Polynesian Bowl. I was shocked that he didn't go into the 25 cycle, because I thought he was ready to go in 25. But again, I like that he did stay in high school, because it gives him an extra year to work on his craft. One of the things that, and we'll get into a little bit of highlights from the All-American Bowl, and we'll break this all down for a little bit, because I think that when you look at his tape, there's a reason why this kid is just so incredible when you see the type of athlete that he is. So we'll go ahead and let's look at some highlights of him, and I'll point out, do my best to break down a little bit of what he brings to the table. So where are we at? Okay, this is what I like. I know this is a little bit of a tidbit, and this may not mean much, but I do like that he's in a 2-point stance. And here's why. Because when you're in a 2-point stance, you have more of a burst. Because when you're in a three-point stance, you really don't have a lot of momentum that's being generated. And I know that because and by the way, for some guys that are in high school, if they're in a three-point stance, there's not a lot of momentum that you're going to generate because you're going to pop straight up, you're going to expose your chest, and you're going to basically tell this offensive lineman, hey, I just popped up. Go ahead and strike me right in the chest, and I'm going to go on my back. But I do like that he's in a two-point stance here. Good first step. I want to see his hands active. Bam. I love the swipe. Like him how he bends the corner. I would like for him to get more of an arm over, but this is where he win games. Strip sacks. That's just a great overall play by Ellie. All right, here we go. I don't know if I can blow this up, so you guys might have a hard time seeing this one. Again, another arm over. See, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this one. All right, here's one where I'm going to be kind of picky about this one. He's immediately in the backfield, which you can look at and you can say that's a great thing. Well, here's your problem. I want him to squeeze down, and I want him to read quarterback. I don't want my guy in the backfield. Look, I get he's a heck of an athlete, but I want him reading quarterback all the way because let's say this Q is a bit faster. He sees this defensive end screaming down to go try and attack running back. He's going to pull this ball, and all he has a block right here at the top in the slot. All he's got to do is just go up against his safety. And that's maybe 5-6 yards. Now it ends up in a negative play, but let's pretend this is a faster quarterback and it's a smarter quarterback and it's a college quarterback. They're going to take advantage of that mistake every freaking day. There we go. I like this one. Initially goes back inside, but we maintain outside high containment, and we're in the backfield. By the way, guys, I'm a former defensive end with 10-plus years of experience playing in football. I had an opportunity to walk on at Southeastern Louisiana University, which is an FCS Division I school, but that didn't work out. But that's a story for another day. Okay. So this is one where a sack is almost given to us because he ended up in a stalemate for a little bit. See how he's high a little bit? And I'm going to be a little critical. Look at his helmet and look at this offensive tackle's helmet. Both are basically the same height. So he's high. We need to be lower than our offensive tackle so that we can generate more momentum. So here's what I want him to do. I want him to club back inside, and I want him to arm over. And if he does end up, and if this QN ends up rolling out to, I think that's his right, then I'm going to swipe back in, and I'm going to maintain outside containment. Because that's the most important thing that comes with being a defensive end is that your number one responsibility is containment. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Contain, 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 contain. I don't care if I got to. It's just natural, guys. But when you're talking about a program like South Carolina that has produced some of the best defensive linemen, Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Kennard from last year, Tonka Hemingway, who's going to be a dog, TJ Sanders. By the way, we interviewed both of those guys whenever we were in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. We had a lot of fun doing that, by the way, too. But I think this is going to be a great fit if Ellie is to flip his commitment to South Carolina, which I will be very, very happy if he can do so. Again, this is me being a nitpicker or being nitpicky around this. His first step isn't bad. I like it. But our offensive lineman's shoulders are dipped. So what do we do from there if it's dipped? Well, this is what I'm doing. My hand's going to be on this breastplate. Other outside hand is going to be on the shoulder. I'm going to extend, peek, and release. It's also known as a push-pull. When you push, generate momentum, get their shoulder pads popping up, and then fling them off to the side and get an arm over, or not an arm over, but swim up to generate your momentum. But you're double teamed as well. Actually, you're almost triple teamed. 1, 2, 3. What are we doing here? Well, when I got extra protection, I got to maintain quarterback depth. Now I got this backside tackle that's going to push me out of the way. Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bend the corner, and I'm faster, and I'm going to get a barely shoestring tackle. But, again, you got to maintain quarterback depth, especially when you're facing an Arch Manning or a Lenora Sellers or a DJ Lagway, guys that can really run the football well. That's what you're going to have to go up against at the next level. He's going to do it. I want to shout out my man, Jackson Johnson. Gamecock Nation is in the building indeed. Appreciate for the comment, brother. All right. See, this is my favorite play of the entirety of this highlight reel. Usually your first play is your main one that you need to put on your highlight. This is even better. I mean, it's just so smooth. It's almost a ghost swim. In fact, I think it is. Offensive lineman pops his shoulders up. Arms are not bad. I got an extra guy. I'm going to take another step out. I'm going to dip my shoulder. I'm going to get low, and I'm going to rip back up without touching a guy. I really, really like that. Here we go. This is one that I like. I'm going to look at. And guys, you're gonna hear me. You're gonna see a lot of this, a lot of film breakdown, a lot of recruiting highlights. You know, that's what we're gonna bring at the end of the day. Boom. Well, why didn't we finish? So I don't know if this is a designed stunt or not. I don't think it is, but no, this isn't a TE. Typically, a TE would be this defensive tackle would be taking a hard step up the field and going outside to act like a defensive end, and then this defensive end would go around and attack the B gap right between where the defensive tackle would be. Instead, this is actually an ET, which is the opposite. End is going to take a hard step up the field and attack the B gap. Thanks, babe. And the tackle is going to come around. There's no hard step from the tackle. I thought this was one of those two, but it's not. So he's going to take a hard step outside. We're going to act like we're going to rush outside, and we're going to bring this back foot. Bam, plant, get low, rip across, force the throw away. I love his highlights. Do I think there's a lot that he can clean up? Absolutely. But I will say this. Guys, I really love Zion Elliott. When you pair him with what South Carolina can do at the end of the day on the defensive line and the legacy that they bring with the defensive line, I am really, really liking the future of what South Carolina is going to do. Guys, Travian Robertson is one of the best defensive line coaches that is out there. He did great things with Albany State. He did great things with Georgia State. And he's been incredible over the last 3 years with South Carolina. It's going to continue to improve. He's going to eventually go get a DC job. Hopefully do more at the end of the day. Our boy Jackson still in the chat. Tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix about the magic that Lucas will be creating all right here Wednesday nights on Gamecocks Live on South Carolina at the Voice of College Football. Thank you, Jackson, for that awesome comment. Publix? I've never been inside a Publix, and I think that's funny that you bring that up. Because the only Publix that's even close to where I live is, I think it's like 30 minutes away. But I think that's really funny that we see that. All right. One more thing we got to talk about with South Carolina. Actually, two things. Number one, I released my rankings a couple months ago on Twitter discussing my picks for the best quarterbacks in college football in the SEC. And I think, and just a disclaimer, I released these back in February of 25. So I still have Nico Iamaleava on here, but I want to compare mine, and I want to give you Josh Pate's picks for his top quarterback. So this is what I had at the time. I will say I would put Joey Aguilar at 9. I would keep Blake Shapen there. Actually, I would move everybody up 1. I put Marcel Reed at 8. I put Joey Aguilar at 9, and I put Blake Shapen at 10. I had Lenore Sellers number 2, which I think is very fair. I think Sellers can really become one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I really like what Lenore Sellers is bringing to the table. And many of you are going to see these stats that he brings, and you're going to say, well, most of those were inflated because of only a select few games that he popped off at. Well, that could be true. But when you look at the total season stats, guys, he had a great year. He really had one of the best years that we've seen from a South Carolina quarterback in a while. Connor Shaw was putting up great numbers through the air, but when was the last time we saw a guy with the type of dual threat capability that Sellers brings to South Carolina? It's kind of hard to think of one. But I also have to be
Austin Simmons, quarterback Ole Miss. I think he really has a breakout season. I love that he only had a series, right?
And I'll be straight up with you. Sellers has some flaws that he's got to work on as we progress
on time,
going into next year.
Places, ball placement. Here we go. Here's the drive right.
I think his deep ball was great. I thought he had a lot to improve on from there.
This guy's throwing motion. I like his ability to throw the football down the field. And we don't know what Ole Miss is going to do.
Overall, I think he's had
so much. I think
two of his best games.
They can lean on and say, okay.
Really, I thought
was
really two of the games that I thought was his coming out
something
party
to build upon and continue
was Texas A&M and Clemson.
We have taken the
but you also had games where he struggled.
Because Rome is that old
For example,
safety.
I thought the Illinois game was.
I just saw on display what can happen.
I wouldn't say his worst, but it really wasn't his best
because
game.
He's inspired me today.
Thank you.
Or 24.
And my bold prediction.
I thought the Ole Miss game.
I think it's pretty bold.
Either the Ole Miss game or the Old Dominion game
is that bold,
was his worst.
I don't know how bold that is.
Well, were they
I would even throw
I think it's bold.
LSU in there.
Thank you.
But the first 3 weeks of the season.
Hey, and a lot of people question.
You could look at Sellers and you could say
he is the right guy. It's year 2.
that this was not a confident quarterback.
Take over that offense. I think
this was a guy that ran into sacks, that struggled being comfortable in the pocket,
especially the offensive line.
And you just never couldn't see.
They're back in the
and you saw all the growing things that he experienced.
The SEC championship game because
the first 4 games of the season.
Declaration just yet.
I didn't know how bold you were going to be. I just wondered how bold you were going.
I think you saw shades of what he could do. For example,
I'm not sure how bold
that long run that he got against LSU.
Because I'm not going to go on record and
and
say
you thought to yourself as a Gamecock fan,
but one
man,
SEC quarterback from this league will win
I'm
the Heisman
excited
Trophy
for
this
the
year.
future
It may be your guy Austin Simmons
of what Lenore Sellers is going to bring.
Maybe Garrett.
But other times,
Sellers is one we talked
made
about.
you scratch your head and wonder,
are
we sure that we got the guy
really good quarterbacks in this league
to be our quarterback? Are we sure back to Luke Doty? Is he just another one of those?
One of those guys will take the Heisman home this year.
Not John Mateer?
Yeah, John Mateer.
And the answer is no.
Dude, I'm impressed now that I saw John Mateer on the TV with
because once he
do
finally got
like beginning of October and see if John Mateer is
once
on the
he
list. All right, I have a bold
finally
prediction too.
settled
I
down
toot my horn a little
and
bit. I predicted Florida would win 7 games last
really
year.
got himself together.
I am going
Overall,
to say that
as
3.5
not just a
wins
player,
for Mississippi State is
but also
crazy.
as a person.
Smash the over on Mississippi
especially
State.
knowing
I
that
don't even need to
I can
have
tell.
seen what
I
this
thought he had a
new
little
group
bit
of
of
players
trust
looks
issues
like.
with his
Mississippi
offensive
State was very active
and
in
I
the
might be
transfer
just
portal.
saying that
What I
because
believe in is Jeff Levy's
I'm an outside
system.
source looking
Talking
in.
to so many guys who got on the Jeff
But I
Levy
looked at
train
Lenore Sellers
after he
in
was
games
hired last
against
year in
Ole
Starkville, who
Miss
said, why
and against
wouldn't I
Old
want to come
Dominion
play
and
for
against
this offense?
LSU.
You got Blake
I wasn't
Shapen
sure
back,
if he
a
had
guy he has
developed
so
that
much
trust yet
trust
for
with.
his offensive
I
linemen
think that 3.5
and
wins
for his
for
team as a
Mississippi
whole.
State, a
But I
team
think
that was
after Texas
close
A&M,
to
something
having a
clicked.
much different record than they did last season.
And that's when you
is
saw
entirely
South
too
Carolina
low.
become
I'm not saying
elite.
that I'm predicting 8-9 wins,
Elite
but
on another
3.5
level.
is insulting.
True.
Bowl get 6 wins, yeah.
I do think the offensive
I'll
line
add that on my
is
bold
going to take a
prediction.
step
I'm
back
with
in
that, absolutely.
2025.
I like it. All right,
They
this
got to
was fun.
tackle better on defense.
But I
That's
think
my only
realistically,
thing. I just want them to tackle better.
It will not
Yeah,
be as
point out
bad
Sims
as
for
it
me,
was
Les,
at
on
the
the
start of the
Okay,
season.
well, we're
At Southern Miss.
at Southern Miss.
Done.
Arizona State going to be tough, but
Guys,
you got
from
them at home.
September,
Alcorn State, Northern Illinois.
from the
There's
Texas
4 right
A&M
there.
game
right
on,
there.
he
There's
got sacked
4
only
wins
9
right
times.
there. I think there's some SEC
Before that, he
teams
got
that
sacked
could
4
end up having some success against as well. What
Between
is Missouri
Old
going to look like
Dominion
this year? What is Arkansas going to
in
look like?
Oklahoma. 24 sacks. He only got sacked 9 the rest of the way. And I thought that was incredible.
Lots of returning talent at quarterback
Averaged
in the SEC
4.1
this
yards
season.
a
Garrett
carry.
Nussmeier back at LSU after
And I
throwing
think
for over
he can
4,000 yards and 29 touchdowns in his
do a
first year
lot
as a
of
starter.
things that
Second most in a season in
I
program
think
history at
people are
Arkansas.
going to
Taylon
look
Green
at him
accounted
at the
for
end of the
over
day.
30.
And they'll see that he had only 1 year of quality quarterback experience. Early NFL draft scouts this year. And they'll say, I don't know. He's still a question mark in my book. And I agree. But again, you're talking about a guy that has, in my opinion, the most upside of any quarterback that's in the SEC currently. And in my opinion, Lenore Sellers is going to be SEC Offensive Player of the Year this year based off of what is going on right now. How he is taking over as the overall premier guy in Columbia. But can your stars handle business around you? Can Nick Harbor live up to the expectations that he has? He's a freak, a genetic freak. Can run a 4.40 at 6'4", 240 pounds. Shown potential. How can his route running be this year? How can he improve from last year? That's questions that you have to have answered. And unfortunately, guys, I don't think you have those answers right now. But fall camp is going to expose a lot of what we're going to see from South Carolina in 2025. Boy, is it going to be fun. Let's go around your SEC and talk a lot around what's going on in the SEC in 2025. Very quickly, and I'll get into my schedule predictions. Realistically, schedule predictions and expectations in 2025 for the South Carolina Gamecocks. I say that, and I don't know if we'll have time to do it today, but next week we'll get into that a lot for this upcoming year. So, number one, let's talk about Alabama. Well, recently, Sam Utu, the number 7 interior offensive lineman in the class of 2026, has committed to the Tide. The 4-star can be put all across the offensive line. He is a bowling ball as a pulling guard. This dude is a havoc creator. This dude can put you on your butt at any given opportunity. And I think he's one of the more underrated stars of this 26 class. I think he's one that's not going to get a whole lot of attention because of Jackson Cantwell and the deal that he signed with Miami. Guys, I really, really like Sam Utu. I really, really like him as an interior offensive lineman. For the Arkansas Razorbacks, an 11 a.m. kickoff time is set for Notre Dame and Arkansas at D.W. Reynolds. Now, in my opinion, this is absolutely egregious. I don't know why we're having an 11 a.m. kickoff for a game that I think is going to be one of the more underrated matchups of September. I think it's really, really interesting that you agreed to have an 11 a.m. kickoff. I thought you would have done it at night at DWR. But can Taylor Green and company make them play? We'll just have to see, man. We will just have to see. I think that's a game that many people really need to get circled, that not a lot of people will be circling. And I think you really do have to circle this game because, in my opinion, this is probably the most important game of Arkansas' schedule, and probably one that I think you have to win more than what Sam Pittman did to save his job last year when he beat Tennessee. But obviously, like we mentioned, big year for Sam Pittman and company. You have to win that game at the end of the day. For the Auburn Tigers, Jalen Scott. We talked about flips. Jalen Scott just flipped from Florida State to Auburn. Number 9 safety in the class of 2027. He is adding to an already stacked Hugh Freeze recruiting class who has dominated ever since he got to Auburn in 2023. The problem with Freeze is that you can develop so great in the portal and through, or you can get all these stars from the portal and from the recruiting classes. Can you develop at the end of the day, especially at the quarterback position? You've been great overall everywhere else. Your quarterback is where you've been the weakest. That's where you have to improve overall. Georgia, does Jaira Edwards have an opportunity to head to Athens? Number 3 safety in the class of 2026. A lot of people have been comparing him to Malachi Starks, and I wouldn't blame him. Jaira Edwards is all over the field when you look at his film. This cat can do incredible things for any team at a safety position. He can lock down. He can force you into bad reps. He can go over the top in one-on-one situations and win every time. I don't think he'll be placed. I think he'll be more of a strong safety rather than a free, because I think he's a guy that can come up in the middle of the field and be a downhill tackler. I think he's really efficient when it comes to that. For Kentucky, and I don't know, and this isn't really news, this is more of hot takes / headlines. Mark Stoops is gone after this year. And look, I hate to hear that from the guy, because there's rumors about him going through a divorce. There's some other things that have been going on in his personal life. Not to mention all this. It just is absolutely incredible that a guy like Mark Stoops is going through this. And look, at the end of the day, guys, do me a favor. Pray for the man. I don't care if you're a South Carolina fan or if you're just a regular fan and this is your first time being introduced to the voice of college football. Pray for the man. Ask God for protection over him and his family at the end of the day. For the LSU Tigers, it's, in my opinion, this is do or die for Brian Kelly. If he doesn't get to 10 wins and if he doesn't make it to a college football playoff, it feels like it's almost Tennessee this past year. We're going to find their ceiling for LSU until the new sheriff comes to town. And in my opinion, this may be the yearly expectation that you get from LSU. You can have a strong portal class, but you can't develop on the field. You can do great things during the offseason, but you struggle on the field. That right there is the bottom line when it comes to this team. So you don't have to like my take on that, but I think that's a fair evaluation when I look at Brian Kelly's squad. Looking at Mississippi State, in my opinion, Blake Shapen is going to be the most underrated quarterback in the SEC. Coming off of injury of what he had last year, dude, I really like Drew Brees. Or not Drew Brees. I really like Blake Shapen. He does kind of have some Drew Brees-esque qualities, but a little bit taller than Brees was at the end of the day. But no, I do think that this is a team that can do a lot of damage in 2025. I think Mississippi State is rather underrated this year. I thought they had a pretty decent portal class, and I think this is a team that could sneak a 10-win season. Crazy as that sounds. For the Missouri Tigers, in my opinion, the run game is going to carry the first half of the season. Ahmad Hardy from ULM. I live literally about 3.5 hours from there, so that tells you what state I'm from. God dog it. He's going to get his touches. I think they're going to use him in a lot of different ways. I think they're going to use him in the run, not just in the run game. They're going to get him involved in the passing game as well. I think Bo Pribula is going to use him effectively in swing out routes. They're going to use him at checkdowns, and I think he can make a huge impact for Missouri. For the Oklahoma Sooners, Brent Venables is not going to be fired after 2025. You can forget it. And obviously, you can check out all of our channels. Look, I just don't see Brent Venables getting fired after the massive amount of money that you spent on him this past offseason. The fact that you signed him to an extremely egregious contract and you're keeping him around is incredible to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, but other than that, you did a great job of keeping Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer in this offense. I think this defense is going to be business as usual. Brent Venables calling the shots. I know it sucks that Zach Alley left to go back to Morgantown, but I think an improvement over what you had on offense last year. 7-5 and 8-4 is a reasonable record for this team. Yes, this defense is going to be better than last year. And many of you are going to look at me and say, what on earth are you talking about? If you just literally told me that Ole Miss defense that had guys like J.J. Peegs, with Walter Nolan, with Jared Ivey, with all the talent that they had across the board, you're telling me that they're going to be better this year? I'm telling you, it's business as usual with Pete Golding and company. I think you had a very, very strong portal class this year. And I was impressed with what Ole Miss did in the portal. I think you dominated overall in the portal. I think your edge play is going to get better. I think you're going to get to the quarterback a lot more. And I think with how you have done, what you have done in the past several years, it's kind of hard to deny the reputation that Pete Golding has as a defensive play caller. For Tennessee, Joey Aguilar is a better option than Nico Iamaleava. Let me tell you why. Joey Aguilar has been in a very similar system that is going to be run with the Josh Heupel offense. It was similar whenever he was at App State, and he thrived in it. I think he did well during spring. He did well in the spring game. And I think he's going to continue to develop as an efficient passer. And I think he's just going to get better while getting his feet still wet playing SEC football. Texas A&M, Chance Collins has just committed to A&M. He's a top 50 safety. This is still early on. He is projected to flip to Texas Tech, which I expect for him to do as well. But for now, pretty big commit for Texas A&M. Definitely a guy that they can help develop at that safety position as he goes through his redshirt year. For the Texas Longhorns, ESPN just called them the team with the highest trajectory over the next 2 seasons. And it's hard not to disagree with them. You have a portal class that was incredible this year. You've had recruiting classes that have worked out so well for you over the last several years. And what Sark is building out in Austin, it's going to continue to grow over the next several years. So I am not disappointed with what they say. By the way, South Carolina was ranked, I think, 18th, which I'm not disappointed in that either. I think Beamer has done a great job with the portal class this past year. And this is what I've said all along about South Carolina's portal class, is that you look at it and you say, well, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of depth that you can put there. That's exactly what I said. But you got guys that you can plug into your system, and those are guys that are going to be playing when it comes to the season. They're going to be playing on Saturday nights at Willie B. They're not sexy names, but they're names that you can put on a roster, and they can be starters for you at the beginning of the year. For the Vanderbilt Commodores, remember the whole drama that's going on Instagram with him, with Diego Pavia and Ryan Williams? Well, Ryan Williams said something about killing an ant with a sledgehammer. And Diego Pavia responded with Gucci Mane's Made It song with the following lyrics. Quote, "They acting like they tough but don't want no confrontation." If you think that that's not going to be the most hyped game in the to start the SEC play when Vandy and Alabama play, ladies and gentlemen, you better get ready for what should be a barn burner. When the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Vanderbilt Commodores come into town at Bryant-Denny, getting ready to absolutely try to kill each other. I really think that this is going to be a bloodbath of a game. I think there's going to be bad blood. I think it's going to be chippy. And I think there's going to be a lot of what you expect. But in my opinion, I agree with Ryan Williams. They're going to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. They're going to dominate that game, in my opinion. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about before we wrap up the inaugural episode of South Carolina Live. A little bit of more recruiting news. Because South Carolina just added a portal running back from the Big 12, which, in my opinion, this kind of tells you what it's looking like for Rasul Faison. They just added Isaiah Augustave from Colorado. 6'2", 210 pounds, 394 yards, 85 carries, and 4 scores. Led the team in rushing this past year. Big body back. I think that he is a very impressive running back that I think can eventually crack himself into the starting lineup. He's going to be in that rotation of guys. Now, sources do tell him that it's not tied to the waiver request. They're still waiting on an answer for that, but this is a pretty deep class. This is a pretty deep room that I think it's going to come with Attaway. It's going to include Jawan Howell and Isaiah Augustave to add along to that depth, and he's going to be an effective back for South Carolina this year. He's a guy that I think is a third down back, can get you yards in the middle of the field. He's a power back. I think he's a guy that follows his blocks well. And for a Colorado offense that really wasn't that great up front last year, he's a smart and instinctive back. And I think that's what's the most important thing when you get a guy like that in your backyard. Guys, that is going to do it for us here on South Carolina Live, the very first episode of South Carolina Live. We're going to be live every Wednesday for now until we continue to expand. But, guys, believe me, we have a lot planned for you in the next couple of months. We're excited for the season. I don't know if Jackson is still in the chat right now, but if you are, Jackson, how many days do we have till we get to the start of college football? Because I'm really intrigued to hear this, because I think we're less than 80 days or something. I think we got like 10 or 11 Saturdays left until the start of college football. But Gamecock Nation, we're very, very close to the start of the Aflac kickoff game against Virginia Tech. So continue to tune in here Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern. Every time we go live, giving you all the things up to date with South Carolina football. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you follow me on X at Lucas_Hill23. Follow the Voice of College Football, THEVOCFB. Make sure you like and subscribe to South Carolina Live at the Voice of College Football. Subscribe to the YouTube page. We're live on all sorts of platforms. Instagram, X, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you all very, very soon.